Welcome to Life on Life's Terms. I'm your host, Chelsey, and today in the studio, I have Mikenna Tansley with us. And if you guys don't know Mikenna Tansley, she just had her pro debut. She is a boxer. We're going to talk about that later, but first, let's get started. Well, let's hear how Mikenna started. How about you tell us, what was your life before boxing?
Yeah, so growing up, I was always athletic.
Mm-hmm.
I played competitive hockey for most of my life.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I was a goalie. I did that all the way till midget. And then I just chose to focus on studies in university instead.
Right.
And then while I was doing that, my dad kind of just was taking some classes at the YMCA with an instructor, so more of the boxing fitness. And I went down a little bit with him and did that. And then one day that coach brought us down to the Beverly Bronx.
Oh, yeah.
And I took, the first time I stepped in the boxing gym, I was like, I want to do this. This is cool.
Just knew right away.
Yeah. But then I had an internship in the Philippines, so I went there instead.
Okay.
And then
So what did you take in university?
I am an industrial and graphic designer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you do that full time as well as your boxing?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I do. So I have a company where I focus on graphic design.
Right.
And then I am a contract product designer right now for another company.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you have a full plate.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets busy.
Yeah, I bet.
Between that and training. But the luxury of working from home gives me kind of the ability to...
The flexibility is nice.
Absolutely. I can train when I need to train and I can work when I need to work type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was your childhood like? I know that because I've watched a couple documentaries on boxing recently, and a lot of the boxers say they were scrappers when they were younger, or they were bullied, or both. Did you ever have that experience?
No, it's so wild. I tell people, I've never hit somebody outside of a boxing ring. I never had the anger to punch somebody or do anything like that. So and actually growing up, if I saw two people fighting at a bar, it would make me nauseous. I didn't watching it. Yeah, I was not into the whole violence, but then boxing, it was just more a sport, an art form, something to be good at. It's strategic. It's not just, your goal is to obviously knock someone out or do that, but it's not you're doing it with the intent of hurting them or anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I know some people that I've seen on documentaries, for them, boxing was an anger outlet for them, right? They just, instead of beating someone up on the street, it was get in the ring and cope that way, right?
Absolutely. And I think you're starting to maybe right now see a bit more of a shift. There definitely are those people, but you will see boxers who are in the gym who don't come from that anymore, and it's starting to become a lot more, everybody does it, everybody will like it, right?
Right, yeah. So you played hockey. Did you play any other sports?
Yes, I played soccer, and then I did the volleyball, basketball, badminton.
Yeah,
everything
me too.
like that. Yeah. Yeah, I did the whole spectrum. At one point I wanted to try baseball, and my mom told me I wasn't allowed to switch sports anymore. So
See, I started with baseball, or I guess softball, slow pitch, whatever you want to call it. And I did that for probably right up until in my early 20s. And then of course, same thing. I did the volleyball, I did badminton. And my brother, he did amateur boxing. Actually, I was pretty young. I think I was probably teens, maybe high school. It was so long ago. And I think maybe we went to where you were saying Beverly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bronx.
Yeah. I think he took me there. And the first fighters were female. And one just had this gushing nosebleed, and I was front row. And I remember feeling nauseous. And he just made fun of me. He's like, for real? We've been here 5 minutes. And I was like, oh my gosh, oh, look at the blood.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not for everyone. And it's funny, I tried rugby for this shortest period of time, and I got a black eye, and I was like, this is not for me.
You're like, I'm out.
But now boxing, I get a black eye. I'm like, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Not a big deal. Yeah, I don't know. I was queasy that one time, but I was intrigued with boxing after. I've never tried it or anything like that. But I had an uncle in BC who was a boxer back in the 80s, and he was from Williams Lake, BC. And I was just trying to find old articles of him, and I think he was in the silver belt championship.
Okay.
And then he was in a Golden Gloves tournament. And I knew he was pretty high up. I should actually reach out to him and talk about it. Maybe I'll throw that information into the blog I'm going to write. But I just remember growing up and him always watching boxing and air boxing with us, right? And we were all little and giggling away. And there was trophies everywhere and medals. So I've kind of always been interested in it, but not enough to actually try it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how has your lifestyle changed drastically since you started? How old were you when you first started with amateur?
My first fight would have been about 3 years ago.
Okay.
So I was 27, 24.
Okay.
Yeah, 23, 24, somewhere in there.
And did you drastically change, like once you started training and your diet, your fitness, or were you always a gym goer?
I always was, but definitely in that leg between stopping hockey and starting boxing, I didn't work out as much and everything. So I mean, it was a huge change for me to get back into that, and especially, I mean, I train twice a day right now. So
okay, yeah,
yeah, and it's like in my mindset, if you want to fight, you have to be willing to do that, you know?
Yeah.
You're going in there and someone's trying to hit you. If you're not willing to commit to the training of it, then that's when I think injuries become a bit more serious.
Yeah.
You're not in the right position to be there, right? So, I mean, you sacrifice a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
You and especially with weight and everything, right? Like you have to. I'm not somebody who personally ever wants to do a drastic weight cut. I don't really believe in them. I know a lot of fighters do them and they're okay with them. I've maybe only had to cut a pound at most.
Oh, okay.
So that's just how I like to do it. So, I mean, there's a lot of times when you're like, oh, I really want to have this, but I can't. So,
yeah. You gotta avoid temptation.
A lot. And it was easier when I was living by myself, but now I do live with my boyfriend and his family. So, and there's always like cake and everything. I'm like, oh,
you're like, oh,
that.
damn it.
I know. Just watch them eat it.
Just smell it. Damn it.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, no.
How about dealing with the stigma that could be around females boxing? I know it was probably a bigger deal back like years ago, like looking at a female as a boxer, because females are expected to, were, and I guess still are today to a certain extent, expected to be more feminine, and boxing is more of a masculine, aggressive, air quotes, sport, right? Have you had to deal with that from people?
A little bit. I mean, you definitely get all the people who are like, why do you want to hurt your face and stuff like that. So, I mean, there is a lot to get past, but I think female boxing right now it's a perfect time to be involved in it because it's on such a rise, right?
Right.
Like when Jelena, let's say, was coming up, she's a pioneer doing it. It was so much harder for her, whereas now you see females on a lot of the major undercards.
Yeah, it's not so uncommon.
No,
not as
not
uncommon
at all. Actually, even if you come to our gym, most days there'll be more girls in the gym than there is boys.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So it's definitely taking a turnaround. But I mean, I always faced that adversity even when I was playing hockey.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say with hockey you must sort of be used to it, right?
I remember my third year of midget, I wanted to try out for the boys team, and the association had to like sit down and decide if they were going to let me be a part of the club anymore.
Oh,
and
wow.
They couldn't understand why I wanted to do it, and it was like I just want to try to be the best that I can be. So yeah,
I had a friend in high school and she played ringette since she was a kid, and it was similar to, like, people just didn't expect her to. And then of course outside of playing her sports, and even I'm sure for yourself outside of the ring, you are like, you're petite, you're pretty, you can get dolled up. People wouldn't look at you, like I wouldn't glance at you and be like, oh, she's a boxer.
I know,
because there's a stereotype that you have to be air quotes butch or masculine, right? And that's totally not the case.
No. So I also think, like, especially in the amateurs, when I was taking those first few fights, like, people strongly underestimated me.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't have that angry side, really. Like, if you know me, I'm super, like, chill and fun. I just like to have a good time with everyone. But then when it comes time to, like, train or fight, I get really serious.
Yeah.
So.
And then surprise, just a whole new side of you. Hey?
Yeah.
So when your dad first took you to Bronx, and you knew right away that you wanted to box. What was the immediate attraction for you? Like, why?
Oh, I don't even know. I just thought it was so cool. And then I just kind of had this feeling like this is something I think I could be really good at and something I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't even really seen people spar or anything yet because we were just going down at like 7 o'clock in the morning with one of the trainers and doing more like a fitness type thing. But there would be a couple of the boxers who would come do that in the morning and then go again at night. And so seeing them and how good some of them were, I was like, I want to be like that one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you have any idols before or once you got into it? Any other boxers that you really looked up to?
I mean, there's a lot of the men that you look up to. For females. Yeah. I mean, for females, a lot of the girls in our gym, you know, we've had some girls be really successful throughout it. Right now, I looked at a girl, her name's Sinicia Estrada, and I was watching her kind of fight, and she switches as well. And that's when I was earlier out, and that's when I was like, I think I want to try fighting both ways too.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was probably one of my biggest influencers for that style that I wanted to have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So have you tried different mixed martial arts or?
No, I haven't. I was training at a gym that offered it at once, and it just, maybe I tried a little bit of kickboxing, but it just wasn't really for me. I just wanted to box.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love watching it, but I don't personally want to.
Just no attraction to it. Okay, well, let's talk about some injuries. Have you ever been knocked out?
I have not, no.
No? Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I know. Well, have you ever had any serious injuries, either with hockey or any of your other sports with boxing since you started?
I mean, I've been pretty fortunate. I've had like minor injuries, nothing serious. Sometimes you'll like pull your shoulder a little bit out or anything like that, but nothing that's over the top. No.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to talk to you about concussions and your thoughts on, let's see if I can say this properly, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. There we go. I think I got it. Yeah, we'll just say CTE.
Yeah, awesome.
Because I know like that's a big topic for football players, but obviously for boxers, well, it's been called punch drunk before, right? CTE is obviously a possibility for anybody to get, right? And who's in a contact sport such as boxing or mixed martial arts. And I was watching this interview, I think it was with Yusuf Mark. He's a male boxer. Anyways, he slurs really bad. He almost talks as if he has marbles in his mouth. And he said he was out because he was tired of being injured. And he said, like, listen to the way I talk. This is because of fighting. And he didn't want to do that anymore. And he was actually almost discouraging fighting. I don't know. Personally, this isn't something I would know, but has anything changed in order to prevent that? Or are rules stricter?
You're definitely starting to see it more. Again, I mean, you're seeing it throughout sports in general. Like football,
like it's really big in football.
They've got that whole concussion protocol now that you have to go through. I think you're starting to see, even at the amateur level, doctors do a lot more post-fight analysis and hand out suspensions and actually like follow up on them. Even I've seen Alberta Boxing make sure, like, if they saw a kid get a suspension, that he's not even sparring in the gym after, you know, like really trying to.
Yeah, they're really strict on it.
Yeah, they're getting it in place. And I mean, it's part of it for sure. And especially in the sport that we're in, I mean, you're just taught that it's okay to have a headache sometimes. I mean,
it's almost inevitable.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's knowing that line and that difference, like, between a headache and there's something a bit more serious going on.
Trusting your own body, I would assume.
Absolutely.
Right?
And then just making sure that you have a team around you that you trust. You know, like, I know that my coach, like, if I take a good hit, it'll be every day. Are you like, do you feel anything? Is there anything at all? And I would trust that he would stop me from fighting if he thought I took too big a hit and then not put me in right away again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you need that trust. Hey,
Absolutely.
That's great.
Absolutely. I think at the amateur level, it would be good to see a bit more. I mean, you look at somebody like Lomachenko. He had 397 amateur fights.
That's crazy.
You don't need a CT scan at any point in the amateurs. You don't need to have anything be checked out until you turn pro. But boys in the amateurs, once they're open, fight without headgear.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like being a professional boxer.
Yeah, exactly.
But they don't have any of that in place for them.
Didn't that just change recently, the fighting without the headgear?
It goes back and forth.
Okay.
Back and forth, yeah. You'll see it. A lot of things change very quickly. I mean, they'll take their headgear off, and then here they'll need to wear headgear, and over somewhere else in the world they can't wear headgear.
Right.
It's kind of all over the place.
And is that just for the males or females as well?
Only males.
Okay.
Females will wear headgear until they turn pro.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So that was a huge concern of a lot of people with me turning pro too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. For some of my family, it was hard.
Yeah. I was just gonna ask, how are your parents about it?
My dad is great. My dad loves boxing, obviously. Like, we watch boxing together constantly. My mom is so supportive, and I love her of it, but it's so hard for her. But she comes to all my fights.
Okay.
She can't really watch them, but she's still there. So
she's at least close by.
Absolutely.
Just tell me when it's over.
Yeah. No, she like sets a timer on her phone and just looks down and everything.
Oh,
no,
that's
but
so sweet.
She's getting better. She is, for sure.
Well,
So.
I can only imagine now that I'm a mom, I don't think I would want to watch my daughter being punched around.
Absolutely. Actually, the craziest is my granny. She just loves it. She's there, like, she has a walker and everything, but she's there and she's yelling, "Go get her."
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, okay, so I was watching this this clip. It was with a guy named Chris Nowinski, and he played football, and he did this TED Talks, and it was the quest for truth on concussions and CTE. I think he was one of the founders or the founder of the Concussion Legacy Foundation, where they have majority of football players, but other athletes donate their brains, and it's to check for CTE. And like he was saying, well, he was a football player for Harvard, and he was also in the WWE. And then he got a severe concussion doing that. And that's kind of what started him on his path of looking into it, especially just the depression or the aggression and the impulse control, like all those issues that can arise if you have CTE. Especially, he was looking into it right around the time of when it was Dr. Benoit, I can't remember his last name, who was looking into all that, right? When it was really big. And he was actually he was the person who got Andre Waters, who was an NFL player, to donate his brain, or got the family to give permission for him to release his brain to be studied and researched and whatnot. And he was even saying that out of 111 brains that they cut open, whatever, did their research to, 110 of those brains of these athletes had CTE. And I was just thinking, it's crazy to me how this was so undiagnosed. Like, this was such a mystery to people for so long. Like, it's just in the last 20 years that this is really a big topic for people, right? It's almost scary when you think about it.
Absolutely.
Because the brain is such a...
It is scary to think about. But then even being like the athlete, you know it's a possibility, but you just don't think it's going to happen to you, right?
Of course,
I guess that's probably how it is. But because I mean, I've looked into some of that stuff before, and it's horrible to see how their lives like take that turn, you know? And I mean, I don't think we know what the stage of prevention is anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe Chris was saying in his video that that's what he is hoping to come up with, is some ideas on how to prevent and manage. And at this point, there's not really anything. Like, I read this article about Chris Benoit. He had killed his wife and his 7-year-old son and then commit suicide. And it just obviously shocked everybody. And this was 2007 maybe. I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
And when they studied his brain, his entire brain, all regions showed severe CTE. And at least it kind of explains these athletes, I guess, for lack of a better word, losing their mind, right? Like there's some answers to it.
Yeah.
But I feel like personally, if I was in your shoes, I almost wouldn't even want to do all the research because
I know.
Do you want to know? Like,
no, probably not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the biggest thing is just making those self-assessments too. Like I say, like you see in the NFL now, it used to be they would take that huge hit and they're expected to go right back out there. But I mean, you even still see with other sports injuries, NFL players holding out on contracts because they don't have any liability, like they don't give them the long-term one. So if they get injured, but they're literally the ones putting themselves on the line, right? So boxing's the same way. And I mean, you see the ones that scare me the most are where you just are watching and you're like, just stop the fight. Like, I don't want to see it. Or somebody that you know has taken a lot already, like having that person in their life stop them from getting back in the ring before they get past that level, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the biggest thing that I think in boxing we can do right now is knowing those exit points. And, you know, as horrible as it is for a fighter, you never want your fight to be stopped. But if it's going to protect you, then it needs to be stopped, right?
Yeah. In the end, it makes more sense to have it stopped, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you're right. It may suck in the moment for that fighter.
Yeah, you never want it to be.
Yeah.
You never want it to be.
Well, with that being said, let's talk about your pro debut. I have a few questions. First of all, how do you prepare? Not even just for your pro debut. Let's just talk about in general. Before a fight, how do you mentally prepare?
Oh, that's like the biggest thing that I think I can still work on is my mental preparation. But I mean, this time I really tried to tell myself to start enjoying the process more because I would get so worked up and nervous before my fights, I almost wouldn't enjoy it until the fight. And then you love the fight, but that's such a small part of everything else, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do a lot of meditation. It helps calm me down.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something that I do.
I love meditation. I try and do it most mornings. If I have a break in between getting my 1-year-old ready and myself, then even just 10 minutes in the morning, especially if I had a lousy sleep or if I have something coming up that I'm anxious about, then even 10 minutes for me personally can make a big difference, right? Like really ground me, really calm my nerves or whatever the situation may be. So I could see that.
Yeah, no, it helps out majorly. So I do that a lot. And then for me, what kind of calms me down is just doing my workouts. It's knowing that I couldn't have put anything more into a fight than what I did, you know, like I didn't skip out on my runs. I didn't miss training. I didn't not give it my all when I was there, you know, working on those things. And then always just finding something little and new to improve for the next fight. That's okay. If I can find one thing that I can improve for the next fight, then that's what I push towards, right?
Just being mindful. And yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. If you don't want to have to look back and be like, oh man, why'd I skip that run yesterday?
Absolutely.
Or like, oh, I knew I should have pushed it for those last 20 minutes instead of being like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Or sneaking that piece of cake.
Yeah.
Like really stay true to what you believe you should be doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, for probably before nationals and then for my pro debut, I really started, like, I meal prep on Sundays now.
Okay.
Get everything ready just to make it easier between that and work. It's a lot. And then I have started to add more strength and conditioning too. So strength training to try build up and just be more powerful and everything. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about, well, I guess we've talked a lot about your physical training and how you prepare. How did you feel in the moment, like even right before you went into the ring?
I was so nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was upstairs in the dressing room and like my coach is used to me getting pretty nervous. So I go to the bathroom like 80 times. It's crazy. And I didn't know. So like you have somebody sit there and they watch wrap your hands, like someone from the commission. And I didn't know they have to like follow you around for after your hands are wrapped for the rest of the time. So I was like, by the way, we're going to spend a lot of time around the bathroom. And then it was like, okay, it's time to like glove up. So I couldn't. But Jelena was up there and she was like, you need to calm down. She's like, you're making me nervous and I'm not even nervous. She's like, take a seat, just take some deep breaths. And I was trying like so hard too.
Yeah.
So,
oh, that's cool that you guys were backstage together. I assumed that everyone would be kept separate, but how was it having her give you advice? Because she's been around for a while.
It was really good, actually. Yeah. We sparred a lot throughout the training camp.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And they treated me awesome. I couldn't have asked for anything better. Like, she was great. Even she, like, messaged me to see how I was doing, like, a week before the fight and just, like, kind of tried to help me relax and everything. So it was awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good.
So... what song did you come out to, by the way?
This Must Be the Place by the Talking Heads.
Okay, I've never heard it before.
Yeah,
it's trying to figure it out.
It's a different one. It's just mine and my dad's song.
Okay,
so
that's cool.
Yeah, he got me into boxing. I figured it would be a good one to walk out to. Yeah.
One of the male boxers came out to the Lion King.
Yeah, that's Flavio.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. I have a confession to make. I missed your fight in person. I got there late. I, of course, watched it because it was recorded, right? So I did watch it after. But I was going with a friend of mine, and I already knew I was going to ask you to come on the show. So the one fight I really wanted to see was yours, of course, and obviously Jelena's.
Yeah.
And my friend told me that she was out of town. She was running late, but would be picking me up by 7, and not a big deal because doors open at 7. I figured nobody's fighting immediately.
Yeah.
And then at 7:30, suddenly I'm sitting at home. I can't get a hold of her. And I'm like, oh, screw it. So I just run, get my keys, go downtown. And then good luck finding parking, right?
Yes.
Everybody's already in there watching.
Absolutely.
I went to 3 different parkades and finally found parking. And then I'm like running down the street. And I got in there literally after your fight ended, like the 2 males after you were were in the ring, and I was like, of course, what the hell? I was so disappointed. But I noticed, for me personally, the energy of the females fighting is way different than the males.
Yeah.
Like, way different.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was so electric in there.
Yeah.
And like usually I don't hear a lot of it in the ring. Amateur I didn't, but this time like I would notice if I landed a couple good punches, like I could hear people just like loving it.
Oh yeah.
And it just like feeds you even more, you know? Yeah, no,
it
it's
amps
awesome.
you up, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of it probably is, I would say the crowd too. I mean, a lot of them come for Jelena, so they already are interested in the female aspect of boxing too, right? So that definitely helps. I think that's why a huge possibility as to why we chose to turn pro right when we did. I had a couple more amateur opportunities that I could have taken. And then we saw that she was fighting. They said we could turn pro on the undercard, and it was a no-brainer to us. I mean.
Okay. Yeah, because you were the only other female match, right? It was yours. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you at any point second guessing making that choice? Like, were you maybe thinking, oh, I should have taken a couple more amateur, or was your gut?
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely in the lead up. There was a couple points where I was like, am I sure I'm ready for this? Because I mean, for me, it's a big jump too. I've never fought without headgear.
Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest thing. And I just didn't want to lose. That's always my biggest thing. It's the only thing that worries me is I just don't want to lose.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably a common fear.
I'm sure it is, yeah. But I mean, that's also what drives me, right? Having that in my stomach is like when I'm running for 20 minutes and I'm supposed to do 35, it's what keeps me going till the end of the 35, you know? So.
Yeah. How soon do you know who you're going to be fighting against?
I don't know
are
yet.
You, or no, like before your fight, are you told a week before who you're, or?
No, this one I think we knew maybe 4 weeks beforehand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
you'll know.
I wasn't sure how that works.
That's a huge difference. I mean, amateur, they can call you Wednesday. Do you want to fight Friday or Saturday? You know, like you always have to be ready in the amateurs for that. Pro, unless somebody pulls out, I would say you're usually at least 4 weeks because both of you need a training camp, right?
Right.
So,
okay.
But I mean, there is the last minute injuries and then they find a replacement. But
do you find yourself studying her techniques or watching her fights to prepare, or is that
I watched
part of it?
her fight once and then I didn't watch it again. My coach will watch it. I have another coach in the gym. I think he watched it like 7 times. And so they kind of give me their tips and everything, but I just try to focus on myself as a fighter. Because, I mean, even for myself, I know from one fight to the next, I grow and I change and I learn new things. So I would expect the other fighter to do the same.
Yeah, I guess. So you don't want to have this one technique you think she's going to be using. You don't want to have expectations and then get in the ring and be completely thrown off your game.
Absolutely. I mean, I have watched her fight, her most recent fight. So I knew she was going to be a bit more of like the overhand wild shot. So I mean, I did prepare for that. And it was nice to know she was southpaw beforehand. That was a huge, because I hadn't fought an actual southpaw yet. So that was something that was interesting too. Yeah.
I know I was... Okay, well, for the listeners who don't know, you won 3rd round TKO.
Yes.
So you were so excited after.
Oh, I was so excited.
Like when that referee waved his hands and like said, no, it's done, I heard you just like, yes.
Yeah, I went crazy. Yeah. Even I was standing in that corner when he was like giving the 8 count. And
were you like, please?
I was just like, okay, like calm down, everything, and like take your time. But even I know John and Michael were in the corner and John was yelling at me and Michael just looks at him and is like, she has so much adrenaline pumping, she cannot hear a single word you're saying. So.
Yeah, I was wondering, when you are fighting, can you hear your coaches? Are you following them or are you kind of in your own zone, in your own world?
There's usually a couple people that I can hear. Like I can hear my coach, probably not all the time, but sometimes I can. It's just distinctive voices, basically. Right. I think the Shaw, maybe I heard a little bit less because there's so many more people. In an amateur setting, you might hear somebody a little bit more because it's a bit more, less people there, smaller, everything like that. So,
yeah, okay. I guess that you would always just recognize those one voices that would be able to stand out over the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely.
To a certain extent.
And so, like John... I mean, I'm used to listening to him and sparring and my fights before this. So for sure, I hear him out of anyone. Yeah.
So how do you handle a loss?
Oh, tough.
Yeah.
I'm not good at them. No. I mean, I assess the situation mostly, I guess. So, that's tough. I've lost a few times. There was once when I lost and I was like, I definitely deserve to lose that fight. So that was like a huge learning experience for me. And then some of the other ones, it's like my very first loss, I had 9 fights and I think she had 75. She had been to the Pan American Games. It was my first time at Nationals and I was in the gold medal. So that alone was like a huge accomplishment. So, and I still think I fought really well. I don't think like she fought better, but that one wasn't hard for me to really get past because I think it was just the experience. And then a couple of the other ones were really close fights. So, I mean, you either accept them and move on and figure out what you can do or you don't, right?
Yeah, and learn for them.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah, but definitely right in that moment, I don't handle it well.
I don't blame you. Just feel mentally defeated as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, no, probably my hardest loss would have been Nationals this year.
How many tournaments and whatnot have you been a part of?
I had 20 amateur fights over 3 years and then a bunch of exhibitions. Yeah, it's a tough thing to handle, right? So you're putting everything in there. And I mean, there's sometimes when you don't feel like you lost and then you lose. So, I mean, that's something that's hard with the sport that we're in too, right? Like you're leaving it up to other people's opinions. It's not like they scored 4 goals and we scored 3. It's that's how you won, right?
Yeah.
So,
especially like in Jelena's fight when it went the full 10 rounds and then then you just have to wait and see how they scored you, right?
Absolutely.
How did you like that fight? What were your thoughts? I can't believe personally like how exhausted they looked, but they were still just throwing amazing punches.
Yeah. I mean, to get to 10 rounds is huge, right? So
it was a good fight. Like,
it was a good fight. It was. She always brings an entertaining fight, though. She comes to fight for sure. Yeah, I thought it was a great fight. I thought it was entertaining. She had a great knockdown. A great punch landed.
Yeah, that was a close one. I thought the fight was over there.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I loved watching it. Everybody got riled up for sure. I didn't expect it to go the whole way, but it did.
No, me neither.
Yeah. I watched the girl that she was fighting, a couple of her other fights, and I thought that was probably the best fight that I've seen of hers. Okay. So she definitely came knowing that she was going to be in tough.
Yeah. Like I was impressed by her. Obviously, I wanted Jelena to win, right? But 100%. I was very surprised. I was blown away. Just both of them, their energy and the hits they were taking too. Yeah. Like I was just like, oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
There's a few times they would just smoke each other side of the head exact same time and both stay standing. I was like, oh, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, you take those. You take that one good punch and you're like, hey, like I'm actually in the ring. You're like, I gotta be a bit smart here.
Yeah. Let's talk about your coach and your team behind you, because they're obviously a huge part of your success, right?
Absolutely.
So who's your coach?
My coach is John Mendoza.
Okay.
So we're down at Alliance Boxing Club. Yeah, I mean, I was introduced to him and I just knew like that was the right fit. Yeah. Which I think is huge, finding that fit as your coach as a fighter. Yeah. You need that because different coaches teach so differently, right? And you need to find what works for you. But he's so passionate about all of his fighters and about the sport in general. And he pushes you so hard. So it's just great having him. He's like family now. So. Yeah,
I can imagine. Yeah. Was there anything specific that you knew that it was the right chemistry between you two?
It was so interesting because I had done pads before. And then I went down there and the first time I did pads with him, it was horrible because he doesn't say like, he's not just like, okay, do jab, right hand, left hook type thing, you know? He just holds the pad up and you have to see it and throw the punch. So it's a very different style, and it's not like you're not going to throw the same combo 3 times in a row. It's just you adapt and you learn. But what I loved so much about that is that's what you do in a fight. It's not like they're just standing there waiting for you to throw the same combo over and over again, right? So it just helped me evolve so much more as a fighter. Right. And it was so interesting and unique. Plus we have a lot of top caliber athletes and especially females in our gym too. So that helps you as a young fighter mature into a better one, right?
So who else do you have behind you on your team?
On our teams, I mean, everybody at our club from Alliance. In my corner, I had Tommy Dominic. His daughters go down to the gym and he's been assisting with like coaching and training and everything like that. And then Michael was my other corner, Michael Montgomery.
Okay. Yeah. What do you think, or how long do you think this is going to be something you're a part of? Years?
Yeah, for sure, years.
I guess your professional career just started, right?
It just started. That's so exciting. Yeah. No, so there's so much more to do. I don't think I have a time limit on it. It's just more reach the goals we want to reach, and then once we get there, then go from there.
Do you have any specific goals that you want to share?
Yeah. I mean, I've had them since I started. I've never dreamed small, so I definitely want to be a world champion. I'd like to be undisputed one day if it's possible. And if I can, be number 1 pound for pound female in the world. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's better to dream big, right? Then
Absolutely.
You push yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you don't have those goals, then
yeah.
What are you hoping for? I guess everybody gets a little bit different out of it, but
in my opinion, if your goals are easy to reach, or if your goal is not intimidating, it's probably not big enough.
Exactly.
Because I've even caught myself doing that. And if I set a goal like, oh yeah, I'll have this accomplished by 2 months from now, easy peasy, then I'm like, oh, that's probably a shitty goal. Shouldn't be that easy.
You could probably dream a little bit bigger.
Yeah. But then there's that like what if, or that intimidation factor, like whatever the goal is. And then I can only imagine with boxing, it's that much more intimidating.
Actually, what I noticed was I had to, because for my pro debut, I was getting in my head a little bit more, just because it was that like such a big step to be taking. So I actually changed the background on like my phone, my screensaver, to be something that was like a motivational thing. And it's like, I think it was, stop being afraid of what could go wrong and start being excited about what could go right. So if I'm just focusing so much on like, okay, well, what if I lose, or what if I don't do good, or anything like that? It's like, okay, well, what if you do amazing and you win and you make it the whole way, right? So
you gotta change your what ifs.
Absolutely.
To the positive ones.
Absolutely.
I know I've read it. Do you know who Lois Hayes is?
No, I don't.
She writes a lot of, I guess you would say, self-help books.
Okay.
And motivational stuff like that. And in one of her books, I learned about, she had this system, because she'll give you different ideas to try for 7 days at a time. And this one she had was you take 4 different colored, let's say like circles, just whatever, sticky notes that you'll stick on certain areas of your house. Say your bathroom mirror for one, your fridge handle for another, your front door for another. And each color will mean a different saying that you want to say to yourself. So you just pick an affirmation, a positive one, and every time you see it, you do it. And I tried that. I felt so silly when I first did it. But I did do it for a few weeks, and I noticed it made a huge difference because, well, it makes sense. The more you say something to yourself, the more you're going to believe it, the more you're almost reprogramming your brain, right? Absolutely. And I remember my mom coming over, and she's like, why do you have a sticker on your fridge? And she's like, and another one over here on your door. Then like by my shoe rack, there's a pink one. On my coffee mug cupboard, there's a green one. Like, it's just, I was like, don't worry about it. It's affirmations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or even like self-talk in the mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can only imagine you probably do self-talk right before a fight, especially,
tons.
Right?
Yeah. I have like different little things that I'll say, like when my nerves get really amped up. Like this one of my big ones was, I was like, she's not going to hit me as hard as Jelena hit me in sparring. I'm going to be okay. Like little things like that are like kind of how I get myself to move past maybe a little bit of my nerves.
Yeah, it's a good plan. Think of worse situations, or at least make a different situation seem worse.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So do you have any idea when your next fight is going to be?
Not yet. I just took a week off, a very much needed week off.
I can imagine. You were probably doing so much training.
And so because it was my first fight out at the amateurs, the season kind of starts September. So from September until nationals, you're like basically fully in camp the entire time. So that was until, I think nationals was in April. And then I got back, and then it was the opportunity was presented to us that week that I could turn pro. So then I just went right into another 7-week training camp. So I've been training for a year straight now. Yeah. So it was like I need a week off.
Yeah, one week.
I think, as soon as possible. We want to try to be active. Our goal is 5 to 9 times a year if we can be fighting. Off the get-go, then that's what we're aiming for.
I can imagine that you want to stay having that momentum and stay in that mindset.
Absolutely. Plus, I'll go back to the gym full time now. It's so easy to get out of shape.
Yeah, once
you're in it, it's so quick and easy to get out of it. And you want to be ready. Like sometimes, like I say, fights fall through and they need a last minute replacement. And if you're ready and you can go in there, then it's just another opportunity and step in your career, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So have you done a lot of traveling?
I have, yes.
Where have you been?
For boxing specifically, or
both? Let's do both.
Okay, sounds good. For boxing, actually, no, I haven't traveled a ton. I have been all around Alberta. I went to BC.
Whereabouts in BC?
We went to, that's where Nationals was this year. So we went to Victoria.
Victoria. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I fought a lot of international, but they've all been brought here. My other fights that I was supposed to do, my other 2 amateur opportunities would have been against the U.S. and then they're bringing a team down to Barbados.
Okay.
In July, so that would have been one of them, but we decided to turn pro.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, outside of that, traveling for life, I've been everywhere in the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I always wanted to do a lot. I wanted to travel, but I don't know if you've listened to many episodes of this show, but a lot of what we talk about is addiction and recovery.
Okay.
And I myself, I'm 2 years clean from alcohol and drugs.
Okay.
And
congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I always wanted to travel, and then obviously I just got in the wrong lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And I was actually thinking about this over the last couple of days because I was an athlete growing up as well, right? And then I don't know if it was the partying that made me stop being an athlete or if it was no longer participating in sports that brought on the partying. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not sure what came first, what caused what.
It's tough.
How did you, like, were you ever a partier? How did you balance that?
I was actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine would have been my legs between sports. It would have been for sure. Like when I was playing hockey, because I was playing midget triple for females when I was in high school. So we would have games, I think 3 times a week. We'd practice like 4 times a week. And then outside of that, my dad would want me to go to goalie training and everything. So it was like we would usually play Saturdays and Sundays, and we had curfew on Fridays and Saturdays then. So
it was
strict. Very, very strict, very maintained. So it's not like I did a ton in high school. And then when I was in university, we had a lot of fun. We partied. And then when I got back into boxing, and then I'll never forget, because I was still kind of like, I'd like to go out and stuff. And my training would be at 7:00 in the morning, and I got so mad at my dad for not waking me up the one day. And he's like, I did that for years. He's like, if you want to do this, that's on you. He's like, you have to get yourself up. But he's like, I'm not going to let you step in the ring if you're not going every day. So
yeah,
that was kind of probably my wake-up call.
Oh, yeah, I bet. He's like, hello, you're accountable for yourself.
Absolutely.
You're like, what?
Absolutely. And that was kind of like, no, you're right. Like, if I want to be competing in this and be a top caliber athlete, I have to be training like a top caliber athlete.
Yeah. I know at one point I was even going to pitching camps and whatnot for softball, and I had one coach who was really honest all the time, and I loved it. And then I got to high school, and the atmosphere was obviously completely different than junior high. And I didn't have my gym teacher on my ass because it was a brand new gym teacher who didn't know whether or not I was athletic, what I actually enjoyed doing. And I remember my first year of high school, I showed up to gym class late wearing a skirt and high heels. I look back now and I just laugh hysterically. I know, actually, you and I have a mutual friend.
Okay.
Paige Anderson.
Okay.
Anyway, shout out to Paige if you listen. I met her in high school.
Okay.
And it was in her gym class, and she seen me walk in, and my nickname was instantly Barbie.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's what I was called. Well, she called me that all of high school. We ended up being really good friends, but
yeah, she
was like me. She played softball, and she didn't let the partying take over, where I think that's what I did. I thought that's what you're supposed to be doing. And then, of course, my addiction kicked in and I didn't even know it, right? And then after, like in my early 20s, it was joining a beer league. So same thing.
Absolutely.
By the end of the game, we'd all be half drunk anyways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But so at least you were able to find some restraint.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, I always probably did have it. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it go either way, though, and I've seen how it is. So to pull out of it is amazing because that's a struggle in itself, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So,
well, and there's a lot of professional boxers that even just the fame, and not just boxers, I mean anybody famous, but the fame of it, you have all this money to spend and this free time, and it's nothing out of the norm to do drugs and alcohol. I mean, some people have that mentality that I don't want to abuse the body I've worked so hard to make, but then there's some who don't
One
care.
of the best in the world right now. Take a look at Tyson Fury. I mean, he talks about it where his life was a couple years ago.
Yes, actually, I watched an interview with him, and he was talking about, well, he's an advocate for mental health now, right?
Absolutely.
His addiction. Like, he was saying at one point he never really drank. He would drink maybe 4 times a year. And then next thing you know, he was drinking all day, every night. He was doing drugs where prior to that, he had never touched a drug.
Absolutely.
And he had his wife and kids, I believe, who... like, he wasn't being a father anymore, and he was just so consumed by this addiction because it was the only way to escape his sad thoughts, really. Like, he was suicidal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the interview I watched with him was really powerful. I didn't have a clue.
Yeah, and, he's an inspiring person for sure within the sport. And I think it's great to see someone like that open up about it.
Exactly.
And let people in and let them be aware and be that role model.
And like he was saying in the interview I watched, he was saying he just wants people to understand that you can be as big as he is, as big and strong, because he's 6 foot something, 6'7", I think, and just huge. It's like size doesn't matter.
No.
Obviously, when it comes to your mental health, like, people can look at you and see you as this big, strong fighter, but nobody can see inside your head. Nobody can feel the pain that you're going through, and just the stigma around mental health, because there is a big one. And he just wanted everyone to be aware, like, it affects everybody.
Absolutely.
And I was really moved by how he just opened up about how addiction can just get anybody as well. Because, like I said, he was someone who drank maybe 4 times a year.
Yeah.
So it surprised me for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, good for him for being aware and for speaking out on that kind of stuff, because I think it's really important for sure. So you're not sure yet where you are going next, hey?
No, we're looking for our next fight. I know there's another KO card in September. Okay. So we're hoping to be on that, and we're also hoping to get one in between those two.
Okay, so how do you go about getting on that? Like, what's the process?
So
for people like me who don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the fighters are signed with KO. We're still kind of looking through the contract with them. But we just reach out to them, and if they have an opening and they want us to be on, then we'll go on the card. Yeah. A lot of that isn't my role.
Right.
It's like my coaches and the managers and everyone like that. So I try to keep myself as uninvolved in that process as I can.
Yeah, just focus on you.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
Absolutely. We've had instances where we were supposed to go down to Idaho, actually. Okay. And fight, and this guy who was putting on the card in the amateurs, like, I have no idea how he got my cell phone number, but he wouldn't even call my coach back. He would only call and talk to me, and I was like, this is just, so we didn't end up going. It was just like,
that's a little odd.
It all became a little bit odd, and all the other fights kind of fell through, so to go down there for one fight was kind of hard, but yeah, no, so since then we're just like, I just focus on the fighting aspect of it, you know? Yeah.
Why not? Why overwhelm yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So do you have any advice to anybody out there who perhaps wants to look into boxing? Do you think that there's an age limit on when you can start?
No.
I mean, you started at what age? 24?
Yeah, 23, 24, probably somewhere in there. Yeah. No, I really don't think that there is. I mean, there's a girl who just started coming down to our gym, and she's 10, and she's kicking butt, and we love it. Yeah, no, so cool. And then there's people who don't start till a lot later in life too, like most boxers wouldn't start at 23, 24. So any range really.
How do you think what would be the best way about starting, like going about getting started? Just finding a coach, or just finding someone to spar with?
No, don't start sparring right off the bat. I mean, that's how you know if you're going to want to actually fight one day or not, is like the first time you get punched in the face, you're either going to be like, yeah, I want to do this, or no, I don't.
I can imagine.
Like, again, when I played rugby for that one game, I knew the second that I got a black eye, this isn't what I want to do. I would say just go down and start like hitting a bag and see if it's something that you like, you know. Finding the right gym I think is huge. So, I mean, there's the boxer size stuff. That's a good way to get into it. That's kind of probably how I got into it, was the boxer size.
I've seen boxer size. I was looking online at different workout things, and I was like, I feel like that would tire me out.
It's such a good workout. It's insane. It's like the best workout of your life.
Yeah.
But to anybody who wants to, just come down and try it. I mean, what you're going to find at 95% of the boxing gyms you go to, if not 100, is everybody so like welcoming. It's actually a very, very welcoming community.
Yeah, it sounds like a really supportive group of people.
And like nobody's looking at you and judging you.
Yeah.
Everybody's come from all different backgrounds, all different lifestyles. Just come there and do your thing, basically.
Yeah. So funny. I've said before on this show, I don't go to the gym the way I used to. I'll do workouts at home or go to a workout class or do yoga at home or yoga class. And I'm intimidated to go to the gym because I feel like at home I'll lift like 5-pound weights. And I'm like, man, I'm going to go there. People are going to be staring at me. And like Justin has said before on the show, like nobody's going to be staring at you.
But it's such a stigma. Even when I was like not as an athlete, like when I was just in university, I would go, but like I wouldn't do very much because I'd be like, well, people are going to judge what if I'm doing this wrong or something.
Yeah.
I had that same thought in my head. And still today, like when I go do strength and conditioning, because I just go do it by myself, I'm like, I wonder if people are staying. And I'm like, Mikenna, nobody cares what you're doing.
Right?
Like, you don't care what any of them are doing. So.
Yeah, I know. That's how I try and look at it, because there was a point I used to wake up at 4:30 every morning, go to the gym, and I wasn't nervous about it. Like I would say the same thing to myself. Like, I'm not standing here looking at everybody else and judging how they're working out. I don't even notice anyone else. But now I just have this mentality like, oh my God, I lift 5-pound weights at home.
Yeah, no. I wonder if that's more of a female thing then too.
It might be.
Yeah, I would guess so.
Yeah, because I feel like you're more likely to see, well, this is my opinion, see men comparing themselves to other men on like in a motivational way, I would assume, or the ones who are working out in front of the mirror just loving what they see.
Yeah.
Whereas me personally, I would avoid the mirror.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I love that you say how it's such a supportive community and welcoming. That's good for everyone to know. Maybe I'll try like a boxer size one day.
Absolutely.
I'll just try. Now that I've told everybody I'm embarrassed to do it, I'll just wing it anyways.
Just try it. Yeah. No, it's an insane workout.
Yeah, I heard just the cardio and trying to keep up with it is hard.
Yeah, it is. I remember my very first amateur fight. And I was like in the gym sparring like 6 rounds, doing everything. And then I go, and after my first round, I go back to the corner. I'm like, is the whole fight over yet? Like, I don't have energy to go back out there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Couldn't imagine.
Yeah. That was the wild thing for actually my pro debut. And my coach said it was the first time he's ever had to, because when I turned open a year and a half, 2 years ago, they changed females from fighting 2-minute rounds to 3-minute rounds.
Okay.
As a amateur open female. Mm-hmm. So now I went back to fighting 2-minute rounds. So I was used to fighting 9 minutes with 2 breaks, and now I was only fighting 8 minutes with 3 breaks. So I actually had to train to be in the ring for less amount of time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was an interesting shift.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find it difficult to do?
No, it wasn't too bad. It was just, you can't start off slow whatsoever. That's kind of what I just had to tell myself. Like, it can't be, you just kind of figure it out, because 2 minutes is just going to fly by, and then that's a round, right? And when you're only fighting 4 rounds, like, you need to win all 4 rounds. So
yeah. Well, with your pro debut, did you just feel like adrenaline took over? Like, I never would have guessed you were nervous. You looked so pumped up.
Yeah, for sure. As soon as you step in there, like, you get nervous and it all builds up, and then as soon as you're in there and it's go time, then
as soon as that bell rings,
yeah, it's, you kind of find it all goes away, and you're just like there. Focused. Pretty much. Yeah. That, or the first time like she hits you, then you're like, hey, like, I'm here. Yeah. I have to be here.
Yeah. The first time she hit you, what were your thoughts? Were you intimidated, or you just like...
Not really. I mean, there was a couple that she landed. There was one shot that she was landed, and I was like, okay, like, she could still hurt you, you know? So It wasn't anything too bad for this one, though.
Yeah, it wasn't one where you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think we're close to an hour now, so we could probably wrap it up. But for our listeners, do you have any of your social media platforms you want to put out there for people to find you? Maybe like, I don't know if you have an Instagram or...
Yeah, I have an Instagram and a Facebook. So, I mean, just search me, Mikenna Tansley, on Facebook. And then for Instagram, it's McKeens. MIKEENSS, I believe.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll find you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'm so glad you came on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I look forward to watching future fights, that's for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you want to find the after show blog, you can find it at www.lifeonlifestermspodcast.com. My Instagram is Chelsey_lifeonlifesterms. And there's always our Facebook page, which is Life on Life's Terms Podcast. And I believe that's it. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you all later.